Take Me to Church, the Churches of Geneva's Black Community, presented by Historic Geneva.
In the early 1790s, as the village of Geneva was being established, many plantation owners from southern states began to move north with their enslaved people. Geneva's first African American inhabitants were forcibly brought to the area by enslavers from Hudson, New York, and Virginia. Based on our current knowledge, this is a list of the enslaved workers at Rose Hill Mansion from 1803 to 1827.
By 1799, laws from various northern states, such as the New York State Gradual Abolition Act, stipulated that enslaved children born to an enslaved mother after July 4, 1799, would be declared free once they turn a certain age, 28 for males and 25 for females. It also stated that those who were born into servitude before this date would be redefined as indentured servants. On July 4, 1827, slavery became illegal in New York State.
As African Americans gained more freedom, many churches and other institutions, like the Female Benevolent Society in Geneva, began offering education services. One of the sole purposes for the Female Benevolent Society was to, quote, gather in the colored people and all others who were willing to be taught to read the Bible and otherwise receive religious instruction, end quote.
Churches were moved to act due to their Christian feeling of responsibility to provide aid to whom they perceived as needy and the general lack of school accessibility. Those teaching literacy were extremely selective about which texts in the Bible they used. They forced the narrative from the Bible that enslavers should be obeyed. However, it was proven difficult to continue to control what was read, understood, and interpreted within the Bible. As more independence was gained, African Americans took the initiative to begin schooling and worshiping for themselves.
Trinity Church was relatively integrated until the late 1840s, when William Henry Augustus Bissell became rector. In 1853, he created St. Philip's Mission, a segregated version of Trinity that was a space where African Americans of all ages could learn and worship without worrying about prejudice. Union Chapel on High Street served as the space for services and classes, with the building also being used as the High Street Sabbath School. General discrimination from white churches drove many to join churches like St. Philip's. The desire to be a part of an African American congregation with an African American pastor had also enhanced its appeal. Despite this, St. Philip's later merged back with Trinity in the early 1950s.
During the 1940s, new black churches began to emerge in Geneva. St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church was built in 1943, later changing its name to St. Paul Full Gospel Baptist Church.
In 1944, Mount Calvary Church of God in Christ became the first black Pentecostal church in Geneva. It was founded by Syracuse native Philip P. Handy and was created as a place for worship for African Americans living on migrant farms. Ann Russ, a Florida native, also helped start Mount Calvary.
Harry Gramling, grandson of Ann Russ, formed First Love Church of God's Revealed Truth starting in his living room in 1980. It relocated to 41 Lewis Street and then 5 Genesee Park before moving to its current home in the former Border City School building in the mid-2000s.
Mount Olive Missionary Baptist Church was created in 1959 after a schism occurred in St. Paul's Community Baptist Church. A formal church was built in 1960 and expanded in 1970.
Willie Golden, a Syracuse native, created the Faith, Healing, and Deliverance Church of God by Faith in the 1960s. The church is known today as Latter Rain Harvest Church of God by Faith.
In Geneva, predominantly black churches were founded from the need for community and solidarity. Today, they continue to be places of community involvement, reflection, and fellowship. Many host a variety of events, such as online worship, music programs, fairs, public outreach, and much more. Although some churches are facing declining members, church leaders are confident that focusing on the younger generation will lead to a revitalization of religious life.
Information for this video was made possible by the book Make a Way Somehow by Catherine Grover, various articles from the Finger Lakes Times, the oral histories of Harry Gramling, Charlie and John Kenny, and Millie Mathis, and the research by Historic Geneva archivist interns Nicole Wadsworth and Elizabeth Nafz. Photos, unless otherwise indicated, are courtesy of Historic Geneva.